Welcome to the Western North Carolina Shootaround, hosted by Director Team F1 Sports Jake West and Caleb Tallman. Caleb, basketball season finally getting underway in Western North Carolina. We've only got one team left playing football over in Robbinsville with Murphy's loss last week. So Murphy will be getting on the court, and they'll be playing Saturday, and we'll have a good preview of that Murphy Fanning game later on as we're joined by both girls teams head coaches. But tell us what's been happening in Western North Carolina basketball. I know Blue Ridge Early College has played two teams in our Smoky Mountain Conference already with Andrews and Hayesville, and Swain's played Smoky Mountain. YC Dams played Towns County. Walk us through some of those games.
Yeah. We'll start it off, and what we'll do, folks, most weeks is we'll talk about games that have happened from, Thursday or Wednesday night to the following Tuesday most weeks, and then we'll get into games that are to come in the following week. Since our show comes out on Wednesday evenings, we typically record it Wednesday mornings, Wednesday afternoon, being that, there's not typically a whole lot of Wednesday games as we live here in the Bible Belt. But, you mentioned Robbinsville. We'll just quickly say about them. Jake's a little closer with that program than I am, but no surprise here, especially because Lucas Ford is one of the coordinators for the Robbinsville football team and also the head girls basketball coach. They're not going to be playing any basketball until hopefully they bring home a state title back to Graham County. So we won't be talking about them too much just to make fans aware. But as soon as they get started, we'll get to talk about them a lot because they're going to have reschedules and probably have a busy schedule, especially at the beginning of part of the season as they're playing rescheduled games. But hey, let's start over. And talk about Murphy, Jake, and you might have a little bit for this on this. The Murphy girls have played their first basketball game, and Ray Gutierrez, never one to back down from an opponent, went out and played AC Reynolds, had them at home, lost 50-36 for their home opener. But, I mean, talk about trusting yourself early in the year. AC Reynolds won that game, and they're also 2-0. They also beat a school that people might be familiar with, Pine Lake Prep, a big, usually super solid prep school out of Mooresville. They beat them 72-32, and they only beat Murphy by 14. Were you able to get anything out of that game, Jake?
I mean, it was good for Murphy to get finally get playing and play an actual game. But really, just the size of AC Reynolds was way too much for Murphy to compete with. Murphy got some of their younger girls in, and they're getting to where they can work out some kinks early on in the year here. Like you said, I mean, Ray really puts them through the ringer to start out because I think they play Inca, and some more other big schools to come. Yeah, they've got Fanning County, Inca, and Lumpkin County all within their first 5 games, and Fanning County is the number 3 team in 2A in Georgia, and Lumpkin County is the number 1 team in 3A in Georgia. And Inca is obviously a much bigger school in 3A in North Carolina, so he's really putting them through the ringer. But I wouldn't look too much into that score. I mean, obviously they're not going to go undefeated this year as they did a couple years ago. But I think it's good for them to get battle tested and kind of figure things out because with what they lost last year, they need some games like this to figure out who's going to be able to plug and play where and who's going to fill whose shoes coming forward,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing too, and that's one of the things I think we're going to see here is in years past. I think especially when we get into sports like basketball as opposed to football, I think this RPI might be better for sports where you're playing 20 plus games or 15 plus games because like that game is no longer going to hurt Ray and his girls team. Because that's a good loss. I mean, that's just you lost to a good program, and so you're not going to see Murphy like, oh, well, their win percentage is 9.25 instead of 9.50 now, right? You're not going to see that be the difference between them getting a 1 and a 2 seed if they have the kind of year we're expecting. So I think that's a really good thing to see along those lines. And some of those games, sometimes if you lose to a good enough team, that might actually help you a little bit, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
Next game I want to talk about is the Blue Ridge Bobcats went over to Andrews to take on the Lady Wildcats. And, tough game for the Lady Wildcats. I think a little rusty start for them. They did lose to Blue Ridge 46-40. They'll play them again later this year, so that'll be a good opportunity to see if they can get one back. I got box scores as I'm looking on my phone here from Coach Eric DuLong. Emily Miller had a pretty good game, close to double digits. Another player that also did well for them, hit a bunch of shots at the free throw line, was Leah Preston, who that's not one of the players he actually mentioned preseason, and it looks like she had 9 points for them. One of the big things is, Jake, they really struggled from the free throw line. Their free throw percentage, if you take away Preston's free throws, their free throw percentage was probably in that 20% range. I think for the game was closer to 50%. So, that's something early in the year. A lot of these girls are coming out of volleyball and stuff. Maybe haven't spent enough time in the gym at the free throw line quite yet. I expect some of that to get worked out over there. I do think the Lady Wildcats, it's good to see them not losing by double digits in their first game. And I think they may still have a hard time finding their way out of the bottom of the conference. But you can just tell by the roster size and some of the athletes that got to come out, things are trending in a positive direction for them.
Yeah, definitely. And we said on the pilot show that Andrews girls were going to have their best year that they've had in a while, and I still think that to be true, even with the loss to Blue Ridge. I think Eric, their head coach, is a really good head coach, and you can see he's been over the program for a couple of years. Things are starting to turn around. I think if you're a Lady Wildcats fan, you just need to hang in there because he's going to take you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll mention real quickly, these games were a few weeks ago, but we didn't talk about them last week. Hiawassee Dam girls basketball is 1-1. They lost in a home opener to Towns County 41-33, but turned around a week later, Jake, and beat the Towns County girls at Towns County 46-38. So it's always good, if you lose that first one, it's rare to play an opponent back-to-back. But obviously they worked some things out, figured some stuff out, and were able to pick up an early season win. And then moving quickly to one game I did want to talk a little bit about, Jake. Cherokee girls played 2 days ago on Monday, and they played Franklin, the Franklin girls. And here's what I know is I watched the Franklin girls scrimmage the Hayesville girls. Those Franklin girls are really, really good. I mean, they're athletic, they're long, tall, and they're a team that I'd expect to compete in their 3A conference. Well, guess what? Cherokee's girls beat them 67-59. So I've not seen Cherokee in person yet. We will soon. But for them to beat the Franklin girls in the first game of the season like that, I think that tells you that, hey, maybe we're overlooking the Cherokee girls, and they're a team that can slip into that top two conversation with Robbinsville and Murphy.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. I mean, Cherokee is definitely a team to watch. That was my one takeaway heading into this year was Cherokee is gonna make a splash. They've got the Lila girl who's really good, and they've got some other really good basketball players on that team. AJ Hill. So I think they're gonna be really fun to watch, and I think we could see Cherokee girls basketball get back to where they were 3-4 years ago. I mean, just right at the top of the conference at the pinnacle of the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget being up in Rosman. I guess it was 2 years ago when the Cherokee girls faced the Murphy girls in the conference tournament final. And it was it was one of the best girls basketball games you'll ever see. And of course, Murphy went on to tie for that state championship this year when the championship games got canceled. So they're looking to get right back there. But we'll go back to the girls in a second and talk about next week's schedules. But let's talk about some of the boys' games from around the area that have happened. We'll go back to that Hiawassee Dam. We know they've played Towns County twice. They did the opposite of their girls, Jake. They defended the home court and beat Towns County 67-64 a couple weeks ago, but then turned around and lost pretty bad, 56-28 last week. So, obviously not what you want to see to win one and then lose that badly. But they've got some tougher games coming up that we'll really find out about the Hiawassee Dam boys basketball team. I know they lost a transfer to Murphy, but they're a team that probably should still compete for that Little Smoky crown.
Yeah, definitely.
And then going over to the Cherokee boys, the exact opposite of their girls, Jake. They lost to Franklin, which Franklin's boys team is really, really good. Really good. But they lost 75-42 on Monday in their season opener. And when the score's, that high, that's not encouraging. You know what I mean? Just, Murphy's or Franklin's boys really put it on him. Griffin Green had, and I know we talk about Franklin a little bit too. Their senior duo, Griffin Green had 21 and Miles McClure had 15. And they had 10 different guys score. So I mean, just a tough start for the Cherokee boys. Because here's what I'm gonna tell you: Hayesville's boys beat Franklin in a scrimmage. So if Hayesville's boys are beating Franklin in a scrimmage and you're losing by 30 to Franklin, that I know matchups matter, but that does not bode well for the Cherokee boys, who I thought, and it's just one game, I thought they were going to be better than that coming into the season.
Yeah, we had Cherokee in our preseason rankings. Their boys coming in at number 4 behind Hayesville, Swain, and Robbinsville. But maybe, with the way Andrews is playing, and we haven't seen Murphy yet, Andrews may make a run at it and jump him when we could see, Andrews come in at 4, Cherokee at 5, and Murphy at 6. Just depending on what kind of product they put out there. That's how crazy basketball season is.
Yeah. And then going over to Andrews. Andrews played Blue Ridge to open their season last week. We were recording that Tuesday morning, I think, so we didn't get to talk about that game that happened, even though our show came out on Wednesday night. They beat Blue Ridge 67-27. So really good start for them to open the year. If you'll give me just 1 second, Coach Matt Manley was kind enough to share those box scores with me as I'm pulling them up. Really good start for them. Every player that played scored for them, so that's always a good way to start. And here's a huge shocker for you, Jake. Isaac Weaver and Donovan Bateman tied for the leading scorers at 14 apiece. So they're translating football to basketball pretty quick. One thing that was interesting to me was Keegan Ellis was on varsity for that game. Now, granted, Blue Ridge does not have a JV boy, so Keegan might be one of those guys you see move up and down possibly. I don't know, though. He had 6 points against Blue Ridge because Coach Matt Manley told me they weren't quite sure what they're going to do with him yet, but it looks like he got off to a good start. And then Zach Queen chipped in 7. Cam Rattler had 5. One thing to note, though, I definitely know just the way the Manleys like to play. Against a much lesser opponent, they only hit 2 threes. So I think they're gonna look to get that 3-point shot going. But you see that a lot early in the year, don't you? Where teams aren't quite in basketball shape yet, so the long range shots aren't falling yet.
Yeah, well, you mentioned their 2 leading scorers. They were playing football 2 weeks ago, so I'm sure they don't have their long range dialed in yet. But I think that'll change. They've got Andrews is loaded with athletes. They found a good group of kids, and they've been able to keep them all together and keep them on the field or on the court. So I think they're poised to make a run. What Hayesville won 74-24, and what was the score to the Andrews game?
It was 67-27.
So they did what they were supposed to do. Obviously, it wasn't by the margin that Hayesville won by, but it was comparable. And you mentioned some of Andrews' younger kids getting in there to play. So I'm not by any means comparing the 2 teams and saying Andrews is going to be Hayesville, but I'm saying they did what they were supposed to do if they want to compete and get up into the upper tier of the Smoky Mountain Conference.
Yeah, and then moving forward, the last boys game we want to talk about that has already occurred was a good win last week for Swain opening the season. The Swain boys 92-66 over Smoky Mountain. We do have some highlights from that game real quick. Let me pop them up full screen so the folks can enjoy them. But good start for Swain.
Yeah, definitely. That's why we said they were going to finish second in the conference, because they've got the kids and they've got the athletes to do it. And what'd you say the final score to this one was?
92-66.
So just a butt whooping over a larger school in Smoky Mountain.
Yeah, talk about putting some points up.
Yeah, definitely. You hardly ever see a team score 90, 80, 90 points in a game, and mean, we talked about what Swain was bringing back and what they were getting back with Groenwald missing last year. There he is right there, getting in and scoring. And then they've got Hyatt and Isaiah Collins and those other kids. I mean, they're a really good basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, they're good. And one of the things is, too, is I think, they did give up those 66 points. I think they'll look to improve their defense a little bit. But, man, that's intimidating if they're scoring 90-something to start the year.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like, I mean, you mentioned Andrews may not have shot a lot of threes, but it looks like just from watching this, Swain was letting it rain from deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually got to interview, that's going to go up on YouTube later this week. I got to interview Scotty McMahon, the Swain Boys head coach, earlier this week. And I always just come away impressed after talking to him. He really knows what he's doing over there. Here's some game stats for you. And I think that, he was very humble. By no means did he say, we're going to come out and take the conference crown from Hayesville. But there was that confidence there that they would be able to compete with just about anybody. And they've put some really big games on their schedule. I mean, just really big games on their schedule that we'll get into. But he didn't shy away from anybody. And so I think they're going to be a battle-tested team. And I think they're going to be right up there to compete for a conference crown very possibly.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you saw those final stats right there. They shot 50% from the floor as a team. That's pretty good. Pretty good. And if they're able to keep up that efficiency, I mean, I know McMahon didn't say it, but I'll say if they're able to play like they did against Smoky Mountain against Hayesville, then they will compete for a conference title. Now, I'm not saying they'll come out and be world beaters and go undefeated, but they've got the guys in place to challenge for a conference title for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get into our upcoming games. I know we're going to save our big one for the end, and we'll talk because I'm sure even in that interview you guys might talk boys a little bit, but we'll save talking Murphy-Fannin on Saturday. Obviously, that's the biggest matchup of the week just because you got two defending girls state championships. So we'll save that one for the end. But let's talk about this week's upcoming schedule just a little bit on the girls' side and on the boys' side for that matter. And we'll see what we have to think here. We talked about there not usually being Wednesday games. So while you're watching this tonight, Cherokee is playing Pisgah in boys and girls. Pisgah is currently 2-0 in girls. Cherokee girls are 1-0. I see that as being very, very high volatile potential matchup. And, if Cherokee comes out and starts the season 2-0 against Franklin and Pisgah, I think that sends a message to the rest of the conference.
Yeah, definitely.
And then let's look over Andrews. Here's one I want to talk about the boys' side probably a little bit more because, unfortunately, I'd hate to say I don't think the Andrews girls will compete with the Franklin girls come Friday night, Jake. But on the boys' side of that, I think it's a huge game for the Andrews boys early this season because it's going to tell you a lot about them. After you watch Franklin blow out Cherokee, if the Andrews boys come and hang with Franklin or upset Franklin, that's really going to tell you that last year was an anomaly for the Andrews boys basketball team. Because I think 2 years ago, I guess it's 3 years ago now, they were third in conference and only lost 3 conference games. And then I think it was 2 years ago, the year before COVID, they lost 2 conference games only to Hayesville and were second in the conference.
Yeah.
And so, maybe we grossly underrated Andrews in last year just because of some transfers, some COVID stuff. We never know how much teams get to struggle with COVID or not because coaches aren't wanting to tell you and I, media guys, oh, yeah, so-and-so's recovering from COVID or so-and-so's quarantined. And, yeah, he played on Friday night, but he was quarantined for 10 days before that game, how much it could have affected them. So I think if Andrews comes out and competes with Franklin on Friday night, that might tell you that Andrews is ready to come right back up to the top of the conference.
Yeah, I agree. Andrews, another team that really reloaded, and they got, Martin Kidd back from injury. Donovan Bateman's always good. It's like you said, last year could have been an anomaly. It was hard to put a lot of merit into this Andrews team after the way they performed last year, but you're right. I mean, maybe last year was just an anomaly, and they were hit harder by COVID than we thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we talked about the Cherokee girls game. Obviously, Cherokee boys playing Pisgah. I forgot to mention that. That'll be a big one. Pisgah's boys are 1-1. You really want to see Cherokee's boys and come out and compete a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Another game on the in the next, I guess, before next Wednesday's show comes out from a week from today. Swain's playing a bunch of games right in a row, Jake. They got Hiawassee Dam on Friday. I'd expect Swain's boys to win that. That could be a really good girls game, though. I think Hiawassee Dam's girls are usually, top brass in the Little Smoky Mountain Conference. And Swain's girls, they struggled and got pounded by the Smoky Mountain girls, which Smoky Mountain's girls are traditionally one of your top 2A, 3A girls programs. So that might not be that big of a deal. But if you see Swain's girls come out and struggle against Hiawassee Dam, that could be pretty telling. And then they follow it up on Monday, December 6th, playing Franklin. So Franklin, just like they do in football, playing all the Smoky Mountain and Little Smoky Mountain teams. But Franklin's girls and boys are really good. And so it'll be fun before some of our teams play for the first time, Jake. We'll get to compare a lot of these teams to, so-and-so played Franklin. We know Franklin's really good. And then so-and-so played Franklin and, compare scores and such.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't like to do that, but when it comes to high school ball, what else do you really have in comparison? I mean, we don't have the in-depth statistics to go in and look at this could happen or this can happen. So I think that's, for what we do, that's one of the best tools we have. I mean, a lot of people are comparing Robbinsville just in football, Robbinsville and Andrews and Mitchell and Andrews with what's gonna come out on Friday. So we'll see. Obviously, not always a good tool, but I think it'll be good going forward to look back and say, well, this team played like this against Franklin. I mean, if Andrews comes out and just dumps Franklin, then you're going to say Cherokee moving 3 spots down to 6 in your rankings, and Andrews moving up maybe just right behind Swain.
Well, and same thing. Swain plays Franklin on Monday, December 6th. Let's just play the what if game, because this is a sports talk show. What if Andrews came out and beat Franklin and then Swain lost in a close game to Franklin? How crazy would that be? I mean, just, I'm not saying that's not by any means my prediction, because that's not my prediction. But I think by next week's show, you and I will have a lot to discuss in the realm of who beat who. Maybe we can get a hold of a couple of box scores and see how many points so-and-so scored. But a couple of these teams are playing Franklin and Pisgah and Smoky Mountain, early, bigger schools, and it's going to tell us quite a bit.
Yeah, we'll be able to see just how bad our preseason rankings were pretty quickly this year.
But then again, you get into conference play and you just never know.
Yeah.
And so we've talked, I think, about every conference team so far. I guess we don't need to mention Franklin specifically, because every game that Franklin's playing right now is against a Little Smoky or a Big Smoky team. So we've basically mentioned their schedule. But what I think is going to be your best boys game in the next 7 days here, Jake, is Friday night. Hazel's boys and girls are going over to Tallulah Falls. Girls game, I just don't know, because Hazel's girls haven't played a real game yet, and Tallulah's girls have played several. If I had to predict, I'd say probably Tallulah. But you just never know, because Hazel's girls haven't played yet. But that Hazel boys and Tallulah boys game is going to be, that's actually a game, I don't even know if I'd predict Hazel to win in that game. That's going to be a really, really good basketball game. Just for some context, Jake, Tallulah's boys are 5-0, and they've played some big teams. They've played Monsignor Catholic out of Athens. They've played White County. They've played Stephen County. They played Mount Perrin Christian out of Kennesaw. And like I said, they're 5-0. And when you look at the rankings in Georgia They're number 2 in private 1A on Max Preps rankings. But here's the big one, Jake. They're number 7 last I looked in 1A through 6A, like the all-inclusive rankings in all of Georgia. So Mike Cottrell scheduling a barn burner early for his Yellow Jackets. Because I think one thing you might see in that game, Jake, is Hazel's only played Blue Ridge. They did have the scrimmage against Franklin, but that's 3 weeks ago now. I definitely think Tallulah might have an advantage, one, playing at home, but also having 5 games under their belt already.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously that's going to be your game of the week. But for me, my game of the week, I think so. Maybe just all around, we talked about it is Friday night, Andrews and Franklin. I mean, that just sticks out a lot to me. It's 2 teams we cover, and it's going to show whether Cherokee's game against Franklin was either a fluke or whether, we completely misjudged this Andrews team. So I think it'll be fun. There's a lot of good games, like you mentioned, going on in the next 7 days. And I think you mentioned the Andrews and girls and Franklin girls game may not be that good. I think that'll be a fun one to watch too, just to see how much Andrews has improved. I know they lost to Blue Ridge Early College already, who is obviously not a very good team. But what if Andrews girls come out and they're able to compete? You never know with the season as early as it is. So I think if you don't go to Mitchell and watch the football game on Friday, I think you need to go and you want to stay local. You need to go to Andrews and watch Andrews and Franklin play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just share with the folks, Jake. Guys, we plan to open up this show more. We'll be getting more coaches interviews on here. Several coaches have been kind around the conference to share some of their video game stuff with us. And so we'll be getting highlights in this show. We promise you it won't be but another week or so here. And you're not just going to have to look at Jake's ugly mugs and I just chat the whole time. We're going to be getting highlights. We're going to be getting box scores, all kinds of stuff for you, just like we did during football season. This, you could really call this our pilot number 2 episode after last week. But, this time next week, we'll be having highlights from Swain and Franklin, Andrews and Franklin, Hazel and Tallulah, that Murphy Fanning game. We're going to be getting a lot of video and a lot of good stuff, content for you. This show, especially, on the Western North Carolina things, I know we got our North Georgia shoot-around as well, Jake. But on the Western North Carolina thing, there's going to be nowhere else fans will be able to go and be able to see highlights, box scores, and analysis on all of Western North Carolina basketball all in one place. So if you're watching this now, be patient with us and stick around another week or so here. And next week, I know we'll probably have at least, 3 to 4 highlights, boys and girls, in the show because people want to watch their sons, daughters, granddaughters, and, cousins and such. They want to see them hitting threes and not just having to look at you and I.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun year. There's going to be a lot of good basketball. And I think, like you said early on, these first 2 weeks are going to tell us a lot about the rest of the year. So make sure you stay with us. We'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on in the conference. Here in just a minute, we're going to go to break and we'll come back and we're going to have the head coach of the Fannin County Rebels and the head coach of the Murphy Bulldogs women's teams, Ryan Chastain and Ray Gutierrez, are going to come on and preview that game, and we'll talk about the boys' game as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back. This is the Western North Carolina Shoot-Around presented by Team FYN Sports.
Welcome back here, Tim Tao with Jake West. We're joined by 2 very good special guests here, Coach Ryan Chastain and Coach Ray Gutierrez. Obviously a big girls matchup in our area on Saturday at 6 o'clock when the Lady Rebels and the Lady Bulldogs play. Two teams are no stranger to success, but two good coaches in our area, 2 of the best, and it's going to be fun to sit down and talk with these guys and just get a little inside information from them, and just talk girls basketball. So the Lady Rebels are off to a 4-0 start, hot start. Of course, Coach Gutierrez and Murphy just getting their season going. Haven't played as many games, but on Saturday night, you can throw the records out, you can throw everything out. It's going to be a good basketball game. But I guess we'll start with Coach Chastain. Coach, how's practice going this week? how's the ladies' mindset, and are you ready for Saturday?
Well, we don't know yet. We don't play this week until we play on Saturday. It was just kind of the way the schedule fell. And the first 2 days, we've really just kind of focused on ourselves. I've been pretty tough on them the first 2 days. I know Coach knows how it is when you got a week where you don't play a game. You can't let your kids not get sharp because they think they're not playing on Tuesday or Friday, not playing till Saturday. So we've been pretty tough on them the first few days. I like our group. I think we're in a good place, and we've got some good wins. The last two being over Pickens and North Oconee, who are two good programs. So I think we feel pretty good, but it's always hard to go to Murphy and play in their gym. So.
Yeah, and of course, Coach Gutierrez, you guys are hosting the game for Copper Basin Friday, but how's the week of practice going, and how's the team's mindset heading into this week?
We played last week, had a big game with AC Reynolds, which is a big school in Asheville. We didn't play too well. Still trying to fit in some kids with very few, if not any, varsity level experience, depending on freshmen and sophomores. And so, we try not to throw too much at them, trying to get our basketball legs underneath us. I think a lot of our kids still are in volleyball shape, which I don't know if there's any shape at all. But, trying to get some good conditioning in. And, we've trying to stay healthy is the biggest thing. Our numbers are down this year, and so we can't bust them as much as I'd like to early on. But, we're having pretty good sessions.
Coach Gutierrez, you mentioned your numbers are down. You graduated a lot. You graduated Sarah Polium and a lot of guys that contributed in the stat book, but also contributed to just leadership on the hardwood. Who on your team are you going to look for to step up and kind of fill that role?
So we have two seniors that played for us. This will be their fourth year on varsity, and Torrin Rogers and Amber Martin. And so, those are the only two kids that really have played important games, important minutes on a varsity level. And so, we're going to have to depend on them outside just from scoring and rebounding, assists, just all the basketball stuff. We definitely have to rely on them on leadership and letting kids know, what's acceptable in the program, what's not acceptable. And that's something that I've taken for granted the last couple of years, because the kids we depended on has always been in our program. And so with new kids, there's some little things that some are basketball, some are not basketball, that we're having to learn as we go, and I'm having to reteach it. But, I think we have two really good seniors and to help us out in doing that.
Yeah. Coach, I think kind of the same question to you. Fannin, we lost a lot of senior leaderships, but we've had a lot of girls step up early on. Of course, our seniors and Becca Ledford and Jenna Young and Reagan York. But, talk about some of the girls that have stepped up for us early on in the season so far. They've been a surprise.
Yeah, well, I think we talked a while back in the preseason. Becca and Reagan and Courtney Davis were the three kids that really got a lot of experience last year in the playoff run. And Jenna's a senior. She played well for us in the summer. But our junior class is a class that I feel really good about. Reagan O'Neill, Ellie Cook, Riley Reeves, and Ava Queen, all four who are going to play really large roles on our team this year. And those are talented kids that were just waiting their turn. So I think with that group, we're a longer, more athletic, a little faster, lean type team, whereas last year we had a little more size. But those kids are good players. And, it takes me back to 2 years ago when Morgan Holt graduated. She went to UNG, and everybody was asking the question, well, how do you replace a kid like that? And the bottom line is like, she'd score 20 points a game. Well, those points are going to somebody. It may not be 20 from one kid. It may be spread out over two or three. And I feel like the whole of our parts this year, I think this is probably our best defensive group we've ever had because of our speed and athleticism. Now, there'll be some scoring and shooting that'll have to be replaced, and we feel like those kids can do that. But it's the thing about how important it is to play JV basketball games, have kids running your system in middle school. I felt like when we came into summer and we plugged the kids in that didn't have a lot of experience as far as from an execution standpoint and what we were asking them to do, there was nothing new. Now, it's just like Coach Gutierrez said, when you've never played varsity basketball before, there's an adjustment period. Like there's that part at the beginning of the year where kids are wide-eyed, and we're hoping we're working through some of that. And we just expect a lot out of our kids that are stepping in, and we're proud of what they've done so far.
Yeah, it's definitely been fun to see from a Lady Rebel fan, obviously a fan in general, with a great start. I want to ask both of you guys this. You know, I'm glad we're talking to both of you guys because I think a lot of you guys, I think you guys are two of the best coaches in North Georgia and the Western North Carolina area. But from an outsider perspective, talk about what it means like to build a successful program. And both of you guys have done that right now. Ray, you want to go first?
You know, we gotta. I've been two places, and we've kind of built two pretty good programs. And I think the biggest thing, kids got to sell out. They got to be willing to come in and go to work and trust the process. We got here. Murphy basketball, was bad for a couple years, and I don't know if it's a belief in that we brought with us, having a successful coach, or just that pride in the community. But we came in and inherited good kids, and they believed right off the bat. And when they believe, they're going to work a little bit harder, and had some really good parents. I think that's important, and a lot of community support. I would argue to say that on that our women's basketball attendance is probably more than anybody in Western North Carolina, and there'll be a lot of people here Saturday to watch us, and we're really proud of had that community support. And so I think those three things. At the end of the day, you got to have kids willing to work, but at the same time, there has to be some outside help, your parents, community support, administration, all those things.
Coach Chastain, same question to you.
Yeah, this is my fourth year here, and it's funny that we're sitting here talking about this question, and Coach Gutierrez is here because one of the first things I wanted to do is schedule them. Like we talked right when I got here, and I said, hey, man, no matter what, let's try to play every year. And, of course, he was all about it. And when you get around coaches who are good coaches and they want to challenge themselves, they want to play good teams, and we had a good year. And sometimes when people have good years, and, of course, they got back-to-back state championships, and we don't want to run from that. We want to challenge our kids to play against the best women's teams in the area. And that's why I think that games like this are important for us. We want to play in those big environments. We want to play in hostile environments like Murphy because that prepares you for the playoffs. But I think, when I think about our program here and I think about what, for people that don't know, me and Coach Gutierrez, we talk a lot. And I think there's a good, healthy respect between the two of us. I ask him a lot of questions. He's a more tenured guy than me. He's been in it longer. But when I think about it, I think about you just got to set standards and believe that your kids can rise to those standards, because I think kids are resilient and you have to push them. And it's hard in the beginning. Like it was hard the first couple of years, but now we have standards in place and kids are meeting those standards. And I think that's you just got to go to work every day. And built here, the biggest thing for me was I wanted to instill confidence in our program. I mean, we have a history of winning women's basketball games.
Excuse the interruption. The following students need to report to the office.
This happened the last time we were on.
Sarah Holzenbach, Kennedy Davis, Wyatt Crawford, Tyson Anderson, Brandon Rhodes, and Michael Summers. Once again, Sarah Holzenbach, Kennedy Davis, Wyatt Crawford, Tyson Anderson, Brandon Rhodes, and Michael Summers to the office, please.
Hey, Coach,
sorry about that.
At least Ryan Chastain don't have to report to the office. We're good.
Yeah. But I think kids now, and I don't know how Ray feels about this, but like instilling confidence in young people is a big deal now in coaching. And we're trying to do that. And it's not instilling confidence by patting them on the back, but holding them accountable. And when they rise to those standards, all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'm capable of doing this, and trying to build that confidence. So I guess that's kind of the best way to do it.
I think adding to that, Coach, is just like, I don't think people realize how much time that our kids spend in the gym. I would say that last summer we played 30 plus games in June, which I know Bannon did the same. And that's a lot of time. They could be doing a lot of things in summertime, and then This fall we've worked hard this fall, and like you were saying, just allowing them to work, giving them confidence, showing them the goal in mind, and then having proof. Like their great year last year, our great year last year. Having proof that we can reach those goals. Makes them work a little bit harder.
One last thing before you guys go, you mentioned the faculty and the kids, and just the team support from the community. But and you mentioned how long the kids have spent in the gym. You've got both of y'all's staff have some pretty important assistant coaches that also spend a lot of time in the gym. And I know just as much of building a winning program starts with the kids, you also have to have the right guys around those kids.
Yes,
Me first?
absolutely.
Okay. You're good. Go, Coach.
So the last 10 years, the coach, my wife's helped me out, and she, I don't want to say she's a toddler, but I can hammer them a little bit, and she's definitely somebody that can come over there and pick them up, lift them up, make them feel better about themselves. So I have that. We have that dynamic, and then Cody Webb, he's been with me ever since I've been at Murphy. He's great. I can send him a message at any point, and we can talk. And he loves basketball, and most of all, he loves kids. And so having those two people around, at a varsity practice, it's a great staff. And of course, we have our JV coaches here all the time, Jordan Lummy-Good and my uncle, Coach Holloway. And so I've learned you have to surround yourself, one, with people who are loyal to you, and then two, people who generally loves kids and basketball. I would argue maybe third, and it just so happens all those people around me are good at all three.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's funny, Megan Queen, she's now Megan Orton. She's my head assistant, and she used to work for Ray way back in the day at Hiwassee Dam. So it's kind of funny how that all comes around. And she lives in Murphy now. So she said she wasn't riding the bus Saturday, that she was just driving over to the game. So there are a lot of ties back and forth in our communities, but it goes back to kind of what Coach said too. We played 30-something games in the summer, so you got to have assistants that are willing to give up not only parts of June and July, but basketball goes through Thanksgiving, it goes through Christmas, it goes through New Year's, and if you don't have people around you who are committed, it's hard. And I'm just lucky with Coach Orton and Coach Hallmark, who's been a head coach. He's a retired guy that has a lot of knowledge, and now Lacey Walden, who's come back, former player, that's helping us. We have people that, like Coach said, they love kids, they love basketball, and they're committed to what we're trying to do here. And the other thing too, and I know Coach Gutierrez does this too, we were talking about program building, is, we have to model hard work for the kids before they'll do it themselves. And that's one thing I've always respected about Ray at Murphy, is how hard they work and how he leads the charge on that. Because I always said, your kids aren't going to do something that you're not going to do. Like and we talk about assistants, and if I told my assistants to show up and run practice, they'd do it. But we all know how that goes when the head coach isn't there. We have to model that hard work, and I'm just happy I got people on our staff here that are committed to being a big part of what we're trying to build here.
Well, guys, y'all's work speaks for itself. Great players, great coaches, and I don't know about Jake, but I'm excited to see the game Saturday. I know these guys have scrimmaged, but I also know Coach Chastain and Coach Gutierrez. I'm sure they didn't show everything in the scrimmage, and these are two different teams compared to even just 2 weeks ago. So it's going to be a fun atmosphere. Guys, y'all got anything else y'all want to add before we end this segment?
No, like I said, I'm proud to be part of the Western North Carolina and North Georgia area. There's some really we're very underrated in terms of basketball. We got some good basketball. Now, we may not turn out kids that you see on TV, but at the end of the day, we got some very fundamentally sound kids that play hard. And as a basketball purist, Saturday night's going to be fun. We got some really good, talented kids that if you love basketball, you just love the purity in it. You're going to come watch.
Yeah, same here. Like, these are the games that this is why we play, right? To play the good teams. I mean, everybody seems to think that the blowouts are fun, but the reason we do this is to challenge ourselves. So we're excited. We want to, and don't, Coach, I haven't beat Murphy in the regular season since I got this job. And don't think it don't weigh on me.
I think the last time the Lady Rebels won was 2015 on December the 29th. They won 51-50. So it's been a little bit since the Rebels have beat Murphy. So, Jake,
he ain't worried about that. He's set back and confident. He ain't worried.
I got issues. It'll be fun.
It's going to be a fun game Saturday night, 6 o'clock. The guys' game is going to be a good game too, guys. We got two good basketball teams there in the guys' game. Not to leave out the guys. The boys' game is going to be fun to watch. So I don't. There's not going to be many empty seats in Murphy Saturday night. So
Sure.
Yeah, appreciate you guys coming on. It's like not much that can be said. I mean, just show up and watch the game. I know the SEC championship game is going to be going on, but there'll be girls and guys on the floor on Saturday night that are going to be trying harder than those guys on the football field Saturday also. So appreciate you, Ray. Appreciate you, Ryan, for coming on. We're really looking forward to Saturday.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys.